I'm looking at a chart of the price of silver over the last 100 or so years, as well as a chart of the M2 money supply, which measures money in banks. And right now, as I speak, silver is about 21.90 something, and the M2 money supply is about $21.809 trillion. So there's roughly $1 trillion of money for every dollar in the price of silver. Now, at the beginning of just before we had all the stimulus for the pandemic, at the beginning of the pandemic, the money supply was about 15.9 trillion, and the price of silver bottomed out at about 14.16 an ounce. I distinctly remember that because I was trying to order a large amount of silver, and there was a lot of fraud going on. A lot of people love to take advantage of chaos to commit fraud. In Chinese, we have a proverb for taking advantage of a bad situation. We call it 生活打劫. And so a lot of people were doing that, and so they had to confirm a lot of information to place an order. You had to mail in a recent utility bill, which was tricky because I used to live out of my car. I quickly moved somewhere when I heard the news of the health scares and all that. So I had to look up other information to send them. I eventually got through, and I made a lasting memory doing that, to say the least. I was just settling into the lockdown, and I started writing an AI for the game of backgammon. I named it Corona Gammon. So being on hold, writing the Corona Gammon, and eventually getting the silver at the door was it made a lasting memory of the beginning of the pandemic. Kind of took my mind off of all that was going on. Now, the previous time that silver had crashed was obviously just at the beginning of the Great Recession, October of 2008. Silver hit 973 an ounce. I distinctly remember that one too. I was studying and working on my PhD, and I was riding a bicycle, and one morning I went to the coin shop, and silver prices had just crashed. I naively thought I could buy a large amount of coins with my credit card. I mean, I had just gotten my first credit card. I was trying to build my credit, and the coin dealer gave me a very puzzled look and said he doesn't accept credit cards. So I didn't know how long that crash was going to last. I didn't want to miss the opportunity of a lifetime. And so I raced all over town looking for ATM to withdraw money. And obviously there are limits to how much you can withdraw on your ATM. So I raced around to see what to do about that. I got the cash, I got the coins. I came back to the campus and I was bragging about it. I was really smug about it. I saw my PhD advisor talking to another professor. She said, "Did you hear the economy is crashing?" And back then in October of 2008, the money supply was about $8 trillion. And then obviously we had the dot-com bubble, and there might have been a little bit of a crash with margin calls just after 9/11, and silver was $4 an ounce. Now go to 9/11 over here, and the money supply was about $5 trillion. So you can see all of the bottoms of the silver market coincide with about 1/trillionth of the money supply. And we're sitting on that right now, and that's what gets me excited about silver. Let's see, in 1971, when our dollar was still on the gold standard, silver was $1.31 an ounce. What was the money supply then? The money supply was 649 billion. So even that was a little bit off of the bottom. We had so in 1985, just after Paul Volcker had raised interest rates, the U.S. dollar got very strong against the Japanese yen and the German mark. and there had to be intervention because obviously it hurt our exports. I believe it's called the Plaza Accord. At the time, so this is July of 1986, silver was $5.13 an ounce, and the money supply was 2.3 trillion. So even that wasn't the bottom, right? So here in 1990, late 92, silver was 374, and the money supply was 3.3 trillion. So that was a good indication that that was a good entry point, right? What gets me really excited is if we look at the tops of the silver market. So in 1980, silver hit a peak of $50 an ounce. The money supply was 1.5 trillion, so about 30 sometimes the money supply. If we were to repeat that today, 30 times 20, that would make $600 an ounce silver to equal what happened in 1980, right? And all the historical bottoms line up to about 1/1,000,000th of the money supply, which tells me that silver is near a bottom at the moment. And if you look at the ratio of gold to silver, it will confirm that as well, right? So buying silver now, if you regret not buying silver at the beginning of the pandemic, right after the Great Recession, or just after 9/11, we're at that point again.